My son, Marcus, screamed it like it was the last thing he'd ever say to me. Just die! I don't give a shit! I didn't flinch. I didn't ask why. I just grabbed my bag and left. No crying. No goodbye. He stood in the hallway with that smug face like he'd finally won something. But I wasn't walking out because I was broken. I was done. That night, I didn't pack clothes. Just my purse, phone, charger, keys, nothing else. The groceries I bought? Left them. The laundry? Not my problem. I stepped outside, door shut behind me, and for the first time in years, I felt light. This started 3 months earlier, when Marcus, 23, unemployed and allergic, to accountability, found some mentor online selling the dream. One live stream and he was hooked. Flashy cars, fake money stacks, and big talk about how the system's rigged and only real hustlers win. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe, and please tell me and others, what's one life lesson everyone should hear before it's too late? Share it in the comments below. Thanks. The guy called parents energy leeches and told kids to cut off anyone not hyping their vision. Marcus loved it. He started parroting every line like scripture. Chores are minimum wage energy. If they're not investors, they're dead weight. He stopped lifting a finger in the house. Sleep all day, online all night. Zoom calls. With other wannabes shouting, "Let's fucking go!" like they'd cured cancer. I told him to slow down, to check the guy's website. It was stock photos, reset countdown timers, fake reviews, the whole scam package. I showed him. He laughed in my face, said I was a hater, said I didn't want to see him succeed. That hurt, not because it was cruel, but because he believed it. He looked me in the eye and said I'd been a loser my whole life, like raising him on 2 jobs was something to be ashamed of. Like he didn't remember the nights I skipped dinner so he could eat. Then came the charges. First $3,000, then $5,000 from my account. My name. I stormed into his room, heart racing, and before I could say a word, he said, "Oh, you saw that?" Like it was normal. Like I was the crazy one. "It's an investment," he said. "You'll get it back triple." I told him he had 24 hours to fix it. He stood up, got in my face, and said I was holding him back, that I was leeching off him. Then came the line, loud, final, venomous. "Just die! I don't give a shit." I looked at him and didn't see my son. I saw someone who believed his own lie, so I smiled, because it was over. He thought I left because I was weak. He had no idea I was finally strong enough to let him fail on his own. It started like every other scam, not with a pitch, but with flattery. He found the guy on TikTok first, slick hair, gold watch, fake deep quotes like, "Money isn't real, confidence is." And my son, who never had a job that lasted longer than 3 months, was instantly obsessed. He watched every video, screenshotted every post, and when the guy posted about an exclusive mentorship, he was ready to send money before he even read the terms. He showed me the page like it was gospel. A countdown timer, testimonials from random usernames with pictures that looked AI-generated, and big claims about turning $500 into 6 figures with information the elites don't want you to know. I told him to wait. I said real business doesn't need a timer and fake urgency. He didn't want logic. He wanted to feel special. The guy had a way of talking that hit every insecurity he had, told him college was for sheep, parents were brainwashed, and if your family didn't support your hustle, they were energy vampires. My son clung to every word because it gave him permission to blame me for everything wrong in his life. The first payment was small, $97 for a PDF course. Then came the $219 Zoom strategy call. I overheard part of it. The scammer told him, "You're the type of guy I'd partner with long term. You've got real alpha energy." My son lit up like he'd just been knighted. That one sentence did more than I ever could. It gave him fake status. He started, calling himself a digital entrepreneur, and told everyone he was building a client funnel system. I asked what that meant. He rolled his eyes and said, "It's passive income, Mom. You wouldn't get it." I did get it. I just didn't buy it. But he wasn't hearing anything that didn't come from the mentor's mouth. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed changes. He started waking up at 2 p.m. and staying up all night in his room, blasting loud motivational playlists and pacing like he was on coke. He stopped doing laundry, stopped eating meals I made. He told me I was living in the past and that I'd be dead before the economy crashes. Whatever the hell that meant. He'd scream about vibrations and scarcity mindset. Every time I brought up a real bill, he stopped paying his part of rent, said I should invest in his growth instead. I was watching my son disappear into a cult of one. The mentor posted a new video bragging that his private students were making 5 figures in 30 days. My son believed it because he needed to. He wasn't making anything, not a cent, but he couldn't admit it. So instead, he doubled down. I found out later he'd taken out 2 credit cards under his own name just to keep paying for upgrades. But that wasn't enough. One night, while I was asleep, he used my saved banking info from an old laptop and wired $8,000 to a company I'd never heard of. When I confronted him the next morning, he didn't apologize. He smirked. "It's an investment. You'll thank me." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I called the bank, filed a fraud report, and froze my account. He lost it. Accused me of sabotage, said I was trying to steal his future. I said the only thing I'd ever stolen was his laundry off the floor. He didn't laugh. That night, he posted a video to his tiny audience about how toxic parents ruin high-value men. That's when I realized he wasn't just lost. He was choosing to drown. He truly believed the mentor cared about him. He really thought this guy, who lived in a rented penthouse and sold $2,000 courses to broke college kids, was going to make him rich. I watched him record voice memos to the mentor, pouring out his dreams, asking for advice. I never heard a single one get answered, but that didn't matter to him. Just being allowed to send them made him feel important. One morning, he burst into the kitchen with wild eyes and said, he wants to do a partnership. I'm this close. I asked what the partnership was. He said, he didn't say yet, but he told me to wire the full amount today to lock it in. I said no. He screamed, said I was jealous because I never took risks, said I wanted him to fail. I said I wanted him to wake up. He said, fuck that, I'm out. And when I told him he was burning his last bridge, he didn't hesitate. He packed my bags and told me to leave. Not even his own, mine. I knew then the mentor had already replaced me, and what he didn't know yet was that the man he gave all his trust to was about to vanish, completely, without a trace. After I left, he celebrated. Literally. He posted a video on Instagram, standing in the kitchen I used to cook in, holding a mug that said Boss Energy, smiling like he just won a custody battle over freedom. The caption read, "Cut out toxic people, even if they gave birth to you. Level up season." He didn't just block me on his phone. He deleted my contact mid-livestream and laughed about it to his little follower base, telling them how he cut ties with negativity. Meanwhile, I was crashing on a friend's couch, trying to untangle the fraud case from my bank account and stop the auto payments he'd triggered before I froze the card. The $8,000 was gone. The bank said I had a case, but no guarantee, since the transfer came from a recognized device, my old laptop. It didn't matter that it was stolen by my own son. It was still under my name. He'd taken everything he could get before throwing me out like old furniture. I watched from a distance as he posted daily motivational videos showing off the same outfits, same angle, same apartment, except now, without me in the background, folding towels or bringing him coffee he never said thank you for. His girlfriend Talia had moved in right after I left. She was 21, pretty, easily impressed, and completely obsessed with the mentor too. I could tell from her videos that she thought they were going to be the next power couple brand. They'd do TikToks where she sat on his lap and called him CEO while he played with stacks of cash that I knew were probably loaned or fake. The scammer had told them to show abundance or die broke, and they were doing it to the letter. I heard from a mutual cousin that my son said he was about to be flown out to Dubai to meet clients, that he was in the top 5 earners in the program. None of it was real, but he needed the lies more than oxygen. And the more I watched, the more I realized he wasn't just blocking me. He was replacing me. He said Talia believed in him. unlike me, that she was ride or die. But I knew that kind of loyalty only lasts as long as the money keeps moving. What he didn't realize was that his accounts were crumbling beneath him. The fake mentor had begun sending new payment requests, this time for advanced coaching and tax strategy sessions. He was paying them, still believing the big payout was just around the corner. I found out from the bank that 3 new apps were connected to my frozen card. Fast cash loan apps with 30% interest rates. He wasn't just using my money, he was borrowing against it, digging a hole so deep he wouldn't see daylight for years. Talia didn't know, not yet, but cracks were showing. I noticed in one video, she commented, "Where's the money at, LOL?" and he deleted it. In another, she didn't repost his live stream like she used to. She started posting solo, selfies with captions like, "Boss betch moves," and no tags. That's how you know. She was detaching. He didn't see it because he was too busy editing voiceovers about how the only currency that matters is belief. Meanwhile, the fridge behind him was empty. One of his live streams glitched for a second, and you could see a stack of unpaid bills taped to the wall, eviction notices in red. He didn't even bother to hide them. He was too deep in the delusion. One night, a neighbor sent me a DM. We used to chat in the hallway sometimes. She said she heard yelling from the apartment. Something about rent and lying and where's the fucking money? I didn't ask for more. I already knew what was coming. The mentor had promised him a big partnership opportunity if he could show 10K liquidity. That was the final bait. And my son, desperate to keep up the act, not just for Talia, but for the 800 followers who thought he was on the verge of greatness, was going to fall for it. Again. He thought he was in control. But what he didn't know was that this time, when it all crashed, there wouldn't be anyone left to catch him. Not his girlfriend, not his friends, not me, and definitely not the mentor who'd been planning his exit since day one. The morning, it happened. He was still high on delusion, pacing the apartment in his bathrobe, repeating lines from the mentor's newest voice memo like scripture. "This is your moment, kings. This is the deposit that changes your bloodline." He had just wired the last of the money from the cash loan apps, nearly $10,000, to a different company name this time, something like Next Phase Capital, and the mentor told him to expect confirmation by 9 a.m. sharp. He waited at the kitchen counter like it was Christmas morning, refreshing his inbox every 15 seconds, pacing, sweating, telling Talia, "They're gonna announce my promotion today." She looked less impressed than usual. She was scrolling, on her phone, barely nodding, and when he asked her to record him opening the email for content, she said, "Only if you actually get something this time." That should have been the first alarm bell, but he ignored it. 9 a.m. came and went. Nothing. No email, no text, no call. 10 a.m. Silence. He started checking other apps, looking for signs. The Discord server for top-tier mentees. He'd been so proud of. Gone. Deleted. The Telegram chat? Empty. Every admin removed. All messages wiped. He refreshed again. Still nothing. Talia asked, "Did you pay through a site?" And he said, "No, it was a private wallet. It's more secure." She just stared at him, no blinking, then asked, "Did you at least get a receipt?" He said, "They don't do receipts. It's crypto." She walked out of the room. He chased her down, saying, "It's a timing thing. They're based in Dubai. The hours are different." She said, "Dubai's 4 hours ahead. Genius." He tried calling the mentor. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Still dead. The number that once gave him voice notes and pep talks now gave him silence. He ran back to his laptop and opened the mentor's old videos. Deleted everyone. His Instagram? Blank. Twitter? Wiped. YouTube? Gone. It was like the man never existed. Talia came back into the room and asked, "Are you saying this guy ghosted you after 10 grand? He said, "No, it's not like that. He's building something bigger. This is just a transition." She looked at him like he was made of glass. Fragile, see-through, cracked at the edges. Then she said the sentence that made it real. "You got scammed, didn't you?" He didn't answer. Couldn't. Because answering meant accepting that everything he built, the persona, the brand, the confidence, was built on air. He sat on the floor, not collapsed, not crying, just empty, like someone had pulled the plug. His mind was still trying to find an angle, a loophole, anything to believe it wasn't real. But the signs were all there. The mentor had hinted at it from the beginning, talking about shaking weak hands, leveling up by cutting dead weight, disappearing from the grid to build the empire. It sounded cool at the time. Now it sounded like a preloaded excuse. He opened his banking app. Negative balance, loan interest climbing fast, no more buffer, no credit, no backup, no one to call, except me. And I was still blocked. Talia asked what he was going to do next. He said, "I'm gonna fix it." She said, "How?" And he said, "I'll figure it out." That's when she started packing. Quietly. No fight. No tears. She grabbed her skincare, her charger, her laptop, and one of her jackets. He asked, "Wait, you're leaving?" And she said, "I'm not going to be the girl who stays with the guy who lost everything to a guy named Next Phase." He told her she was shallow. She told him she was done playing house with a man who couldn't pay for his own Uber. Then she left. Just like that. He didn't chase her. Not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't move. For the first time in years, there was no plan, no script, no fake success to hide behind. Just the silence of a cheap apartment filled with broken promises, red notices, and the smell of something burning on the stove he forgot to turn off. And for the first time, he realized what it felt like to be alone. Not by accident, but by choice. His choice. The day he told his mother to die was the day he killed the last person who would have stayed. Talia didn't slam the door when she left. She didn't scream or throw anything or make a scene. She just zipped her bag, slung it over her shoulder, and said, "Good luck, Marcus," like she was talking to a stranger she wouldn't remember in a week. He sat there on the floor with the laptop still open, screen dimming, and for the first time in weeks, he couldn't pretend anymore. No more live streams, no more voice notes, no more building, just bills, silence, and the awful sound of his own thoughts closing in. He thought maybe she'd come back later, maybe she just needed space, but when he opened the fridge, her favorite snacks were gone. When he checked the closet, so was her backup toothbrush. She had already known. She just waited until the moment was too dead for an argument. The first night alone hit harder than he expected. He tried to sleep, but couldn't. The red blinking light on the router reminded him the Wi-Fi was overdue. The room felt colder, smaller. He kept glancing at the door, half expecting a knock, even though he hadn't spoken to a single real friend in weeks. The only notifications on his phone were payment reminders, and in the corner of the room sat the worst part, a shoebox of unopened mail he'd been ignoring. Credit statements, bank notices, loan demands. He didn't even know how bad it was until he started opening them. One envelope showed his balance with the cash loan app had jumped from $20,500 to $3,800 in just 2 weeks. Another warned he had 7 days before it went to collections. That's when the panic set in. Not the kind that makes you scream, the kind that just eats at your chest slowly, like acid. He tried calling the bank, asking if they could reverse the transfers, but they said once it's gone, it's gone. He asked if he could dispute it as fraud. They asked if he'd given consent. He couldn't answer. He lied, said he didn't. Remember, they said that wasn't enough. He hung up, tried to call Talia, blocked, tried texting an old coworker, left on read, even tried emailing the mentor's support team. The email bounced. Everything was caving in. He didn't eat that day, didn't shower, just sat there replaying the last few weeks in his head. How many times he'd told people he was about to be rich. How many posts he'd made trashing broke mindsets. How many times he'd mocked me for working a normal job. And now he couldn't even afford soap. The second day, reality got worse. He got a message from the apartment building. Rent was 3 weeks overdue. Another from the power company. Final notice. He'd never handled those things. I always did. He used to roll his eyes when I reminded him the electric bill was due. Now he was reading shut-off warnings like they were in another language. He tried to pawn his old camera gear, the one he used for filming content, but the guy at the pawn shop offered him $40 for the whole set. Old model, he said. No demand. He took it anyway, used it to buy instant noodles and gas. He stopped posting online. He knew the moment he went silent, people would start to notice. but he couldn't fake it anymore. The weight of pretending was heavier than the failure itself. On day 4, he hit the lowest point. He found my old emergency stash, a hidden $200 I used to keep taped behind the pantry drawer. He ripped it out like it was his. No hesitation. Didn't even think of what it was for. Spent it on food, gas, and one more desperate subscription to a new scam channel that promised financial recovery through crypto flipping. He knew it was fake, but part of him still clung to the idea that one lucky break would fix everything. That night, he broke. Fully. He stood in the mirror and said it out loud for the first time. I used her. Not cried, not apologized. Just admitted it like a fact, because it was. He used me. For money, for labor, for emotional backup, for housing, for excuses, for someone to blame. Every time he failed, I softened the landing. Every time he got angry, I let it slide. And when he screamed at me to die, it wasn't just rage, it was permission. He thought cutting me out would make him feel powerful. Instead, it left him with nothing but the echo of his own voice and the bitter taste of failure that nobody else would clean up. And now, even if I did pick up the phone, even if I came back to fix it, he knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't look at him the same. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't deserve to be looked at with love anymore. By the end of the week, the power was cut. No warning, just a loud clunk from the breaker outside, and then silence. No fridge hum, no lights, no Wi-Fi. The cold hit instantly, and so did the smell of the rotting food inside the fridge. He sat in the dark for a few minutes, like maybe it would just turn back on, like maybe he could will it back to life, but nothing happened. He called the power company, and they said the account was flagged for non-payment and past due notices. He said he could pay next week. They said next week wasn't good enough. After that, he drove to a gas station to charge his phone and sat in the parking lot watching the battery icon crawl up like it was mocking him. He hadn't eaten real food in 2 days. The instant noodles were gone. The pantry was bare. He pulled into a McDonald's drive-thru and tried his card. Declined. Tried a backup. Declined. That's when it hit him. He had nothing. Not low funds. Not tight month. Nothing. Every account was negative. Every card maxed. And no one left to ask. He started calling people he hadn't spoken to in years. A cousin who used to crash on our couch. A guy he knew from high school who once offered him a job at a car wash. Even an old roommate he once stiffed on rent. Nobody picked up. The few that did hit him with the same line. Damn, bro. Wish I could help. Nobody offered a couch. Nobody offered cash. Not even a ride. They all remembered how he acted when he was on top. Arrogant, condescending, always posting about how he cut off weak people. Now, he was the weak one. He went back to the apartment and found an orange eviction notice stuck to the door. Final warning, 3 days to vacate or be removed. He ripped it down and crumpled it, but the ink was burned into his brain. He spent the next night in his car, parked 3 blocks away to avoid being seen by anyone from the building. He didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, trying to remember the last time he felt safe. He used to think being alone meant freedom. Now it felt like being buried alive. The next day, he showered at a gym he hadn't been to in months, using someone else's forgotten shampoo. He avoided the mirror, couldn't look at his face, not because of shame, that came later, but because he didn't recognize it. Eyes sunken, lips cracked, skin pale. He looked like a man 20 years older than he was. After that, he tried, applying for a delivery job. But the background check flagged his credit score and identity mismatch. Something from the stolen card applications triggered a fraud alert. They said he could clear it up, but it might take weeks. He didn't have weeks. He barely had hours. The hunger was loud now, not just a feeling, but a force. He started pocketing sugar packets from gas stations, filling his stomach with water and lies. Told himself it was temporary. Told himself this was just a dip before the comeback. But every time he tried to open his phone and post a video, his hands shook. He couldn't fake it anymore. The mask was gone. People had started noticing. His DMs were dry. The engagement was dead. The likes vanished. Even the fake mentor bots had stopped commenting. That night, he broke the final rule. He searched my name. After all the pride, all the anger, all the blocking, he typed it into LinkedIn. Then Facebook. There I was. New profile photo. Smiling. A new job. HR assistant at a private company. A picture with coworkers, even one where I was holding a welcome back cupcake. I looked peaceful. That smile wrecked him more than any insult could, because it meant I hadn't just left. I'd moved on. Without him. He started typing a message, deleted it, tried again, deleted it again. Nothing sounded right. Sorry felt too small. I need help felt too pathetic. I miss you felt dishonest. He threw the phone onto the passenger seat and covered his face with his hoodie, trying to breathe through the panic. That's when he realized what real loneliness was. Not just being alone, but knowing nobody was coming. Not friends. Not Talia. Not fake mentors. Not even me. And for the first time in his life, he didn't know what the hell to do next. The next morning, the guilt hit harder than the hunger. He woke up with his neck cramped from sleeping in the front seat, his phone buzzing with nothing useful, just spam emails and a text from the loan app reminding him his balance had climbed another $100 overnight. He hadn't spoken to a real human in 4 days. The last time someone said his name out loud was Talia, and even then it was when she was walking out. He rubbed his eyes and stared at the phone again, opening my profile for the 5th time that day. There I was, new haircut, nicer clothes, smiling with people he didn't recognize. One photo from the office party had me holding a mug that said Survivor with a gold star next to it. Another had me at a table with coworkers laughing, a cake in front of me that read, "You're back, we missed you." That one stung the most. It meant someone missed me. Someone noticed when I was gone. Someone, somewhere, still saw value in me. Meanwhile, nobody had asked if he was okay. Nobody had noticed he'd disappeared. His fake success didn't leave a dent. All those videos, all those posts, vanished, like they never mattered. He kept scrolling. One post from me was a quote that said, "Sometimes the best thing they ever did was push you out." He stared at it for a long time, unsure if it was directed at him, but too ashamed to ask. It was the first time he fully admitted it to himself, not just that I was gone, but that I was thriving without him. I had peace. He had nothing. The lies he told himself started crumbling one by one. He used to believe I needed him emotionally, that I depended on him financially, that he was the only thing keeping me relevant. Now he realized he was the weight I had to shed. The worst part wasn't that I moved on. It was that I didn't even hesitate. I'd been ready. I had plans, contacts, backup. I had people who respected me. He had none of that. He had followers, not friends, views, not value. And now that the lights were off and the money was gone, so were all of them. That evening, he drove past my new office, just once, just to see it. Parked across the street, hood up, trying not to look like the exact kind of failure I warned him about. I didn't see him. I never came outside. He just sat there watching the windows light up as the office buzzed with life, imagining me inside, working, laughing, maybe even forgetting him. That thought made his chest ache in a way hunger never could. For the first time, he wondered what I must have felt walking out that door, what it felt like to leave someone who wouldn't fight for you. He thought back to all the times I brought him dinner without asking, paid his traffic tickets, bought him new shoes with grocery money, and he never once said thank you. All the late-night pickups, the quiet pep talks, the birthday cakes he barely looked up from his phone to notice. He had taken it all like it was owed, and the second I pushed back, he screamed at me to die. Now, the echo of that moment played on a loop in his mind. Not because of guilt, but because it was the exact second he destroyed his last lifeline. He didn't know how to fix it. He didn't think it could be fixed. But the one thing he did know was this. He wasn't better without me. I was better without him. And that reality, cold and quiet, settled in his chest like a stone that would never move again. He didn't plan to show up at my door that day. It just happened, like muscle memory pulling him to the last place that ever felt like safety. Except this time he stood outside like a stranger, not sure if he even had the right to knock. He hadn't eaten in almost 2 days, hadn't slept more than an hour at a time, hadn't spoken to anyone who looked at him like he mattered. The world had gone quiet around him, and the silence forced him to remember things he'd buried in. The noise. He stood there staring at the front door, and all he could think about was the last time he saw my face, the way I looked at him after he screamed that line, after he told me to die. But what haunted him now wasn't his own rage. It was my smile, that calm, quiet smile I gave him as I grabbed my bag and walked out. He couldn't understand it then. It felt like mockery. But now, standing in the same spot, he finally got it. That smile wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was closure. It was the look of someone who'd already let go. He remembered how I didn't raise my voice, didn't slam the door, didn't even look back. I didn't have to, because I'd been grieving the loss of him long before he screamed those words. That fight wasn't the explosion. It was the ashes. And now, with everything gone, he finally understood what it meant to be the villain in someone else's healing. He tried to knock once, but froze. His hand hovered in the air. What would he even say? Sorry wouldn't mean anything. Help felt cheap. He stood there remembering everything I did in the days leading up to that final blow. How I paused when I saw the mentor's name on his screen. How I quietly screenshotted his transaction history while he bragged about it. How I stopped packing lunches and started packing my own backup plan. I'd known. I'd seen it all unraveling and prepared for the crash he swore would never happen. And when he told me to die, I didn't break. I just stepped out of the wreckage. That smile wasn't for him, it was for me. It was the first time in years I chose myself, and that's what hurt him the most now. Not that I left, but that I was finally okay without him. He paced for 20 minutes, rehearsing lines in his head, but nothing sounded right. He knocked. Twice, soft, hesitant, no answer. He waited, knocked again. Still nothing. Then he leaned against the door like maybe I could feel it, like maybe I'd sense the regret through the wood. But I didn't open. I was home. He knew I was. The car was parked out front. The porch light was on. He saw the shadows moving behind. The curtains. I was there, but I didn't come. And that was the final confirmation. I didn't need to say anything. I didn't owe him a single word. That silence was the consequence he never saw coming. For a minute, he thought about leaving. Thought about walking away and pretending this was just another failure he'd survive. But he couldn't. Because this wasn't just any door. It was the last one. The last person. The last chance to prove he was something more than what he'd become. So he sat down on the step, back against the wall, head in his hands. And for the first time since it all started, he didn't feel like a victim. He felt exactly what he was. Lost, used up, and finally facing the cost of everything. He threw away. And above him, behind the locked door, I watched quietly. Not out of cruelty, but because some apologies are earned in silence. He stayed on that step until his legs went numb, until his back ached and the streetlights flicked on one by one, casting long shadows across the yard like time itself was trying to drag him away. But he didn't move because he didn't have anywhere else to go. Not physically, not emotionally, not even mentally. And the idea of turning around felt worse than the cold concrete beneath him. He knocked twice again, softer this time, like maybe the volume of his guilt mattered. But the door didn't budge. He knew I was inside. He could hear the soft clink of dishes, the faint hum of the TV, the comfort of a life that didn't include him anymore. That sound hurt more than silence. It meant I'd built something after him, something steady and safe, and he had no right to ask for a piece of it. Still, he whispered, please, like it might slip through the cracks in the wood and reach whatever part of me still remembered his better days. He thought maybe I'd hear the shake in his voice, the way it cracked like the kid he used to be, not the man he'd pretended to become. He leaned forward, pressed his forehead against the door, and stayed there like it was holding him up. He didn't cry, not because he wasn't broken, but because he was past tears. There was nothing left to wash away. A neighbor walked by, paused at the bottom of the driveway and asked, "You okay, man?" He looked up, blinked like he'd forgotten people still existed outside his own mess, and just nodded. The neighbor didn't believe him, but didn't push, just kept walking, shaking his head. That moment stripped away the last of his pride. It wasn't just that he'd failed, it was that everyone could see it now. He wasn't mysterious or misunderstood. He was the guy who screamed at his mother to die and came crawling back a month later with nothing but empty hands and a hollow apology stuck in his throat. Around midnight, I opened the blinds just enough to see him. He hadn't moved. I watched. Him the way you watch someone you used to love but don't recognize anymore. Carefully, distantly, not with hate, but with caution. I saw his hoodie pulled low, his knees drawn up, his fingers twitching like he was still trying to type out a version of the truth that didn't make him look pathetic. I could have opened the door. I could have ended it there, but I didn't. Because this wasn't the moment. Not yet. Forgiveness isn't something you throw at the first sign of regret. It's something earned in the spaces between begging and becoming. I needed him to sit there, to feel what it's like to be powerless in front of someone who once loved you unconditionally. He needed to understand that not all wounds get cleaned up with a hug. Some heal through stillness, through waiting, through proof. I sat on the couch and let him stay outside. I knew he'd knock again in the morning, or maybe he wouldn't. Maybe this was the last we'd ever share, the weight of silence between us. Either way, I wasn't opening that door tonight. And when I finally stood up and turned off the porch light, he looked up for a second, saw the change, and that tiny flicker of hope died in his eyes. That was the real punishment. Not rejection, not words, just the truth that not everything broken gets a reset. The next morning, I opened the door, not because I forgave him, but because he was still there, curled up on the steps like a forgotten package, eyes bloodshot, face hollow, smelling like regret and rain. And I knew this. Wasn't a performance anymore, it was collapse. He didn't say anything at first, just looked up like he wasn't sure if I was real or just part of a breakdown. I said, "Get up, not here." He stood slowly, every movement stiff, and followed me inside without a word. I didn't offer a hug. I didn't ask if he was okay. I poured him a glass of water, set it on the counter, and waited. He sat on the edge of the couch like he was afraid to touch anything, like even breathing too loud might get him kicked back out. Finally, he said, "I messed up." I nodded. He said, "I lost everything." I nodded again. Then he asked the one question I'd been waiting to hear. "Why did you open the door?" I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Because you finally knocked like a man." That hit him harder than any lecture could have. I didn't coddle. I didn't tell him it would be okay. I laid it out plain. A mattress in the spare room, a list of job applications, a strict rule, 30 days, no handouts, no laziness, no lies. He nodded, said, "I deserve that." I said, "You deserve worse, but this is what I've got left." He cried then, quietly, not for pity, but from the weight of finally being seen and held accountable. I didn't cry. I'd done my crying a month ago. This wasn't the start of a sweet reunion. This was recovery, and it was going to be slow, brutal, and earned inch by inch. But for the first time in a long time, he listened. And that's when I knew he was ready. Not for forgiveness, not yet, but for the first real step back toward being someone worth forgiving.